My child, I see you. I have been watching you for a very long time, observing every quiet struggle, every silent tear, and every exhausting effort you have made just to keep everything from falling apart. I see the heavy weight you are carrying upon your shoulders, a burden that has slowly drained the light from your eyes and the joy from your heart. You are deeply tired. It is not just a physical tiredness that can be cured by a single night of sleep, but a profound, lingering spiritual exhaustion. You feel it in your bones. You feel it in the quiet moments of the morning, before the world wakes up, when the immediate dread of facing another day washes over you. I know exactly how much energy it takes for you simply to stand up, to put on a brave face, and to pretend that everything is fine. But here in my presence, you do not have to pretend. I see behind the smile you show to the world. I see the anxious racing of your mind, and I know exactly how desperately you have been fighting to hold on to a situation, a relationship, or a plan that is actively breaking your spirit. I am here to speak to your heart today with a message of hope, grace, and mercy. For so long you have lived in a state of constant tension. Your hands are clenched tight, your knuckles white, from the sheer force of trying to hold together pieces that were never meant to fit. You have poured your time, your love, your energy, and your very soul into this. You have stayed awake through countless nights, staring into the darkness, turning every possible scenario over and over in your mind, trying to find a solution, a fix, or a way to make it work. The physical toll of this struggle has been immense. You carry the stress in your shoulders, in the shallowness of your breath, and in the constant restless energy that prevents you from ever truly relaxing. This constant state of striving has left you feeling depleted, empty, and entirely drained. You give and you give, trying to force a reality to bloom in a soil that is fundamentally, completely barren. And yet you keep trying, driven by a deep, aching fear that if you simply let go, everything you have worked so hard for will shatter completely. I want to encourage comfort, teach wisdom, and point your tired soul toward hope. I want you to know right now in this very moment that your pain is entirely validated. I understand exactly why you are hurting. I have collected every tear you have shed in frustration and despair. You have felt so incredibly lonely in this struggle, convinced that no one truly understands the depth of your agony or the complexity of your situation. You have walked through crowded rooms and felt entirely invisible, carrying this massive invisible weight, while everyone around you goes about their normal lives. You have isolated yourself, retreating into the quiet corners of your own mind, because explaining the depth of your exhaustion to anyone else feels like climbing a mountain you simply do not have the strength to climb. But you are not invisible to me. I see the full scope of your emotional toll. I see the way this heavy grip has slowly eroded your peace, replacing your natural joy with a constant humming anxiety. I see it all. My child and I look upon you not with judgment, but with an overwhelming, endless compassion. Perhaps the most heartbreaking part of your struggle is the lie you have quietly accepted as truth. Somewhere along the way, you convinced yourself that this profound spiritual fatigue is a sign of your own personal weakness. You look at your exhaustion, and you feel a deep sense of shame, whispering to yourself that you should be stronger, that you should be able to handle this, that you should be capable of fixing what is broken. You measure your worth by your ability to endure this agonizing pain, believing that if you just try a little harder, pray a little longer, or sacrifice a little more, you will finally achieve the breakthrough you are desperately seeking. But I need you to listen to me very carefully. Your profound spiritual fatigue is not a sign of personal weakness. It is not a failure of your character. It is instead a direct and inevitable symptom of carrying a heavy burden that I never ever intended for you to bear. You are breaking under the weight of a stone you were never meant to carry. When I formed you, I did not design your spirit to be a holding place for constant anxiety, desperate striving, and endless fear. I designed you for peace, for joy, and for a life lived in a gentle, trusting rhythm with my grace. The reason you feel so completely crushed right now is because you have stepped outside of that gentle rhythm and taken on the exhausting role of trying to be the savior of your own circumstances. You are trying to do my job, and it is destroying you. You were never meant to have all the answers. You were never meant to carry the unbearable weight of forcing a fundamentally broken reality to somehow magically work. I look at you with such tender love, watching you strain and struggle under a yoke that is entirely foreign to my design for your life. The exhaustion you feel is simply your soul's way of crying out for the divine release that only I can provide. It is a warning light, a merciful signal that something in your life is drastically misaligned. I know exactly what keeps your hands closed so tightly around this situation. It is the paralyzing, terrifying fear that letting go equals failure. You have invested so much of your heart, your time, and your identity into this outcome that the thought of releasing it feels like admitting defeat. You are terrified of what people will think. You are terrified of feeling foolish for having tried so hard. You are terrified that if you let go, it will mean that all your pain, all your sleepless nights, and all your tears were completely for nothing. The enemy has whispered in your ear that giving up is the ultimate shame, twisting your beautiful natural desire for perseverance into a cruel, unforgiving chain that binds you to a situation that is actively harming you. But hear my voice of truth today. Walking away from what is breaking you is not failure. Releasing a burden I never asked you to carry is not defeat. It is the highest form of spiritual courage. The tragic reality, my child, is that your tight, anxious grip is actually the very source of your deepest sorrow. You believe that by holding on, you are protecting yourself. You believe that your fierce grip is the only thing preventing total disaster. But in reality, you are tightly holding the jagged edges of a broken glass, and your own grip is what is causing your hands to bleed. The situation you are so desperately trying to save is the very thing that is drowning you. You are pouring your precious, beautiful energy into a vessel that has a massive hole at its very foundation. No matter how much you pour in, it will never be full, and you will continually remain utterly empty. The pain you are experiencing is not the pain of a healthy struggle leading to a beautiful victory. It is the agonizing friction of a soul constantly fighting against the natural divine boundaries I have set for your ultimate protection. I want you to imagine for just a moment what it would feel like to simply open your hands. Imagine the sudden, breathtaking rush of relief that would wash over your tired shoulders if you finally gave yourself permission to stop fighting this unwinnable battle. Imagine the incredible lightness of accepting that you do not have to fix this. You do not have to force this. And you do not have to carry this single-handedly anymore. I am gently confronting your deepest fears today because I love you too much to leave you in this state of perpetual agony. The thing you are holding on to so tightly is acting as a massive wall, blocking the beautiful, peaceful reality I am desperately trying to bring into your life. As long as your hands are completely full of the wrong things, they are not open to receive the right things. So today, I'm extending a gentle, loving invitation to your weary heart. Stop running. Stop trying to outpace your own exhaustion. Stop the frantic, desperate searching for a solution that does not exist. I invite you to come and sit quietly in my presence. You do not need to bring any solutions. You do not need to bring a perfectly crafted plan. You do not even need to have the right words to say. All I ask is that you bring your heavy, tired, aching heart. Come to me with your bruised hands and your weary spirit. Let the frantic noise of your desperate striving finally fall completely silent. In this sacred space of quietness, I want you to simply breathe. Breathe in my unconditional love. Breathe in my perfect grace. Allow yourself to feel the profound safety of my arms wrapped around you. This is the moment to prepare your heavy heart for a difficult but entirely necessary process. The journey ahead will require courage, but it will lead you to a freedom you have not felt in years. You have carried this crushing weight for far too long, and the season of holding on is finally coming to an end. It is time to prepare yourself for the beautiful life-saving process of divine release. Rest here for a moment, my child, because very soon we must gently begin to examine the true nature of what you have been trying to control and how to safely, permanently let it go. To understand why letting go feels so entirely impossible, we must first look at the invisible cage you have built around yourself. You did not build it out of malice, and you certainly did not build it overnight. You constructed it slowly, wire by wire, out of a desperate need to feel safe in a world that so often feels chaotic and unpredictable. This cage is the illusion of control. You have convinced yourself through years of practice and countless moments of panic that if you just manage every single detail, foresee every possible disaster, and carefully orchestrate the actions of everyone around you, you can somehow prevent your heart from being broken again. You believe that your vigilant worry is a shield, and that your frantic, endless striving is the glue keeping your life from falling into total ruin. But look closely at your hands, my child. Look at the tight, unyielding grip you have on your circumstances. This grip is not protecting you. It has become an emotional prison, a narrow, suffocating space where true joy cannot breathe and genuine peace cannot survive. You are exhausted because you are trying to be the architect of a universe you were only ever meant to inhabit as a beloved child. Think about the way your days begin. Before your eyes even fully open, your mind is already racing, running through a chaotic checklist of everything you must manage, fix, or prevent before the sun sets. You carry the crushing responsibility of outcomes that are entirely out of your hands, yet you shoulder the blame when things do not go exactly according to your rigid expectations. You step into each day like a soldier walking onto a battlefield, completely convinced that if you drop your guard for even a single second, disaster will strike. This relentless effort to manage every detail of your life has tricked you into believing that self-reliance is your only option. You plan, you calculate, and you try to manipulate the broken pieces of this situation into a picture that makes sense. But this anxious striving is a heavy, inadequate substitute for my divine guidance. You were never designed to hold the weight of tomorrow. When you try to carry the future on your own shoulders, you are crushed by a burden I have explicitly promised to carry for you. I know exactly why you stay inside that cage. I see the paralyzing fear of the unknown that grips your chest whenever you even contemplate loosening your hold. You look at the vast, uncharted territory of a life fully surrendered to me, and it terrifies you. The human heart, in its fragile and frightened state, often tragically clings to familiar pain rather than trusting my unseen goodness. You know this pain. You have memorized its shape, its rhythm, and its ache. As exhausting and heartbreaking as this current situation is, it is recognizable to you. You know how to survive it. The thought of letting it go means stepping out into a blank, dark space where you no longer write the script, and that loss of control feels like a free fall into an endless abyss. You whisper to yourself that the pain you know is somehow safer than the grace you cannot yet see. But holding on to a familiar agony simply because it is recognizable is a tragic exchange. You are trading the boundless, beautiful future I have planned for you for a tiny, suffocating corner of temporary survival. I want you to truly live, and that requires stepping out of the familiar shadows and trusting the light of my love. When you peel back the layers of your anxiety beneath the desperate planning and the frantic need to fix everything, there is a quiet spiritual truth that we must gently confront together. Holding on so tightly to your own personal agenda demonstrates a fundamental hidden lack of trust in my sovereign care. I say this not to condemn you, but to heal you. When you refuse to let go, you are silently telling your own heart that my vision for your life is somehow flawed, that I might drop you, or that my plan might not be as good as the one you are desperately fighting to maintain. You are looking at a single fragmented piece of the puzzle, terrified that if you let it fall, the whole picture will be ruined. But I see the entirety of your life. I see the beautiful tapestry of your past, your present, and your future, woven together in perfect harmony. My perfect vision is not limited by your current disappointment. When you desperately hold on to a broken dream, you are telling me that you do not trust me to give you something better. The truth you must embrace is that your self-reliance, no matter how strong or well-intentioned, will always fall short. You are finite, bound by time and limited by what your physical eyes can see. You are exhausting yourself, trying to turn a dead end into a highway, entirely unaware that I have already paved a completely different road for you just out of your current sight. When you finally stop fighting me, when you finally lower your defenses and admit that you cannot manage this on your own, you will feel a shift in your spirit that defies all human explanation. The crushing weight of your own rigid expectations will suddenly shatter, replaced by the profound, freeing lightness of my grace. Grace does not demand that you have everything figured out. Grace does not require you to hold the universe together. Grace simply asks you to open your empty hands and allow me to fill them with what is right, what is holy, and what is truly meant for you. You have spent so much time being strong, but true strength is found in the soft, quiet moment of surrender. I want to completely assure your trembling heart today, releasing your grip does not mean your life will collapse. It does not mean you are spiraling into chaos. The enemy has lied to you, convincing you that your anxiety is the only thing maintaining order in your world. But the universe is held together by my word, not by your worry. If you let go of this situation, this relationship, or this deeply held plan that is draining your spirit, the sun will still rise tomorrow. You will not be destroyed. Instead, you will finally be stepping out of your own way. You will be removing the heavy, rusted armor of your own control and allowing me to lovingly and effectively lead your steps. Think of a child who is tightly gripping a broken, sharp toy, terrified to hand it over to their father, not realizing the father has a beautiful brand new gift waiting just behind his back. I am asking you to hand over the broken pieces. I am asking you to trust that I have something far more magnificent waiting for you. Stepping out of the illusion of control is the most deeply liberating choice you will ever make. It is the moment you stop treating me as an emergency backup plan and start allowing me to be the daily compass of your life. As you begin to loosen your fingers one by one from the circumstances you have tried so hard to dominate, you will notice a strange and beautiful sensation. The exhaustion will begin to lift. The spiritual fatigue that has haunted your mornings and plagued your nights will slowly evaporate. In its place, a quiet, gentle confidence will begin to take root. You will start to realize that you do not need to know what happens tomorrow, because you implicitly trust the one who holds tomorrow. You will stop demanding a detailed map and start finding comfort simply in the sound of my voice, guiding you forward. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to not know the answer. You are allowed to be vulnerable, small, and completely dependent on a God whose strength is made perfect in your exact weakness. But as you prepare to step into this new freedom, we must tenderly visit a place of deep sorrow that is still lingering within your soul. As you pry your fingers off the illusion of control, you will inevitably have to face the quiet devastation of the dreams that did not come true. We must look closely at the prayers you whispered in the dark that seemed to go entirely unheard, so that you can finally understand the hidden mercy inside the silence. I know the exact moments you have sat on the edge of your bed, the room completely dark with tears falling silently onto your folded hands. I have heard every desperate plea you whispered into the quiet night, begging me to intervene, to change a heart, to open a specific door, or to heal a broken situation. You did everything you knew how to do. You poured out your soul. You stood on my promises, and you waited with a fragile but genuine hope. And yet the answer you so desperately sought did not come. Instead, you watched the door slowly and firmly close. I know the profound, echoing devastation that followed. I know the physical ache in your chest when you realized that the very thing you had been praying for was slipping entirely out of your grasp. This is a very real, very deep sorrow, and I do not ask you to pretend it does not hurt. The grief of losing a deeply desired dream is a heavy burden, and I have sat beside you in that disappointment mourning with you, even as I held the key to the door that had just been locked. In the immediate aftermath of an unanswered prayer, a profound confusion takes root in the human heart. You begin to replay every moment, searching frantically for a reason why your request was denied. The enemy who thrives on your vulnerability is quick to whisper cruel lies into that fragile space. He tells you that your faith was simply not strong enough. He tells you that you did not pray correctly, or that you are somehow being punished for past mistakes. You look at the closed door, and you interpret it as a divine rejection. You feel abandoned, wondering how a loving father could stand by and watch you weep without giving you the very thing that would stop your tears. But I am speaking directly to your spirit right now to completely shatter that deception. A closed door is never an act of divine punishment. It is never a sign of my absence. It is instead a profound act of my shielding protection. To understand this, you must understand the vast difference between your vision and mine. You are living within the confines of time, walking step by step on a path where you can only see a few feet ahead of you. You look at a specific relationship, a specific career path, or a specific timeline, and you see a beautiful, perfect destination. But you are only looking at a single frayed thread in the massive, intricate tapestry of your life. When that thread breaks, you feel as though the entire masterpiece has been ruined. But I stand outside of time. I see the end from the beginning. I see the entire tapestry, every intertwined moment of your past, your present, and your eternal future. I see how an outcome that looks entirely beautiful to you in this present moment would eventually unravel the magnificent design I have purposed for your life. When I pull a thread away from your hands, it is not to unravel your joy, but to secure your ultimate masterpiece. I know the intense, quiet loneliness that amplifies this grief. It is the unique, agonizing pain of watching someone else receive the exact miracle you have been begging for. I see how hard it is for you to smile and offer congratulations when your own heart is breaking into 1,000 tiny pieces. You watch others walk effortlessly through the very doors that were slammed shut in your face. You see them celebrating the exact breakthrough that you have been fasting and praying over for years. In those difficult moments, the feelings of abandonment threaten to pull you under completely. The enemy whispers his favorite lie, that I have forgotten you, that I have a favorite child, and that you have somehow been left behind in the distribution of my grace. I feel the weight of your tears when you ask me why they received an answer while you received silence. Please hear the absolute tenderness in my voice as I answer you. I have not forgotten you. I have not overlooked your desires, and I am certainly not withholding good things from you out of a sense of cruelty. The blessings I pour out on another person are tailored specifically for their unique journey, just as the path I have designed for you is entirely unique to your calling. You cannot compare the middle of your story to the harvest season of someone else's. When you watch others receive what you have asked for, I am asking you to trust that your story is not over. The very fact that I am holding you back from a specific outcome means that I am reserving you for something that aligns perfectly with the specific beautiful purpose I have written uniquely for you. The hardest truth for a grieving heart to accept is that some things are purposefully withheld because they contain hidden thorns that would eventually destroy your long-term joy. You look at the exterior of what you wanted, and it looks perfect. It looks like the answer to every problem. But I see the subtle compromises you would have to make to keep it. I see the emotional toll it would eventually extract from your spirit. I see how that specific relationship, though entirely intoxicating now, would slowly drain your self-worth over the next decade. I see how that specific opportunity, though shiny and promising, would eventually pull you completely away from my presence and into a life of exhausting worldly striving. You were begging for a stone that was painted to look like bread, and because I love you with an everlasting protective love, I refuse to let you eat it. You must begin to safely reframe your disappointment. I want you to look back at the door that just closed, not as a tombstone for your dreams, but as a massive, heavy shield that I dropped directly in front of you to block a disaster you could not foresee. The tears you are crying now are the tears of temporary disappointment. But if I had given you what you asked for, you would eventually be crying the bitter, heavy tears of profound devastation. I broke your heart in the short term to save your soul in the long term. This is the agonizing, beautiful reality of a father's protective love. I am willing to bear your temporary anger, your confusion, and your feelings of abandonment, if it means keeping you safely on the path that leads to your ultimate enduring peace. Letting go of your unanswered prayers is incredibly painful because it requires you to admit that your understanding of what is best for you is completely flawed. It requires you to lay down your timeline and submit to mine. But this surrender is entirely necessary. As long as you remain bitter about the closed door, you will stay chained to the hallway, completely unable to see the new, magnificent doors I am actively opening around you. Your grief is valid, but you cannot build your permanent home inside of it. You must let go of the specific way you demanded I answer your prayer, so that you can open your hands to accept a love that protects you from unseen harm. The silence you interpreted as rejection was actually the sound of my grace going to work in the unseen realm, preparing a future that will not break you. When you finally release the desperate need to have your prayers answered exactly the way you dictated, a profound transformation begins to occur within your spirit. You begin to look at the empty spaces in your life not as barren wastelands, but as cleared foundations ready for new construction. You will start to realize that every single denial I have ever spoken over your life was intimately connected to a far more glorious invitation. The faith that survives an unanswered prayer is a faith that has been purified by fire. It is a mature, unbreakable trust that declares a quiet reliance on my character, regardless of the current circumstances. This is the exact faith I am cultivating inside of you in this very moment, carefully preparing you for a life of spiritual maturity and unshakable resilience. I am asking you to trust my heart even when you cannot trace my hand. I am asking you to believe that the sorrow of this loss is currently working out a beautiful eternal purpose that you cannot even begin to comprehend. You must let the bitterness go. You must release the ghost of what you thought your life was going to look like, so that you can fully embrace the brilliant, vibrant reality of what I am actually building. But as you begin to accept this divine protection and wipe the tears of disappointment from your eyes, a new and subtle danger will present itself. You will be tempted to ease the lingering pain of the weight by reaching out for something lesser. We must now address the quiet, dangerous compromise that threatens to steal your joy before it fully blooms, ensuring you do not settle for a broken substitute when I am actively offering you a masterpiece. When the silence of an unanswered prayer stretches on, the human heart naturally begins to crave any form of relief. The emptiness of the waiting season can feel so vast that you become desperate to fill it. You look around the quiet room of your life, and the temptation of the immediate begins to look incredibly appealing. In that vulnerable state of profound spiritual fatigue, a lesser comfort often disguises itself as a divine provision. This is exactly where the dangerous compromise of settling for less begins to take root. You start to look at a broken relationship, a stagnant career, or a half-hearted promise, and you negotiate with your own worth. You whisper to yourself that maybe this is as good as it gets. You try to convince your weary soul that perhaps you expected too much, or that you do not truly deserve the wholehearted blessing you once prayed for with such fierce conviction. I see every time you lower your expectations to accommodate someone else's inability to love you properly. I watch with a heavy heart as you adjust your boundaries, shrinking your own vibrant spirit just to fit into a space that is far too small for the calling I have placed upon your life. You normalize the pain. You accept the constant anxiety as a permanent roommate. You take the magnificent, boundless capacity for joy that I wove into your DNA, and you trade it for mere survival. You do this because you are terrified that if you let go of this fragile, flawed substitute, you will be left completely empty-handed. But settling for less than, my absolute best, is a subtle, devastating trap. It is a slow fade that extinguishes your passion, drains your hope, and ultimately disconnects you from the vibrant, abundant life I designed specifically for you. We must look closely at the hidden spiritual mechanics of this compromise. There is a deep, quiet danger in allowing something lesser to become the absolute center of your universe. This is the subtle trap of spiritual idolatry. It rarely looks like bowing down to a golden statue. Instead, it looks like a relationship, a career path, or a specific desired outcome becoming far more important to you than your daily relationship with me. It happens in the quiet moments when the pursuit of this earthly substitute consumes your every waking thought, dictating your moods, stealing your peace, and commanding your complete devotion. Without even realizing it, you have taken a fragile created thing and placed it on the eternal throne of your heart, a sacred space that was entirely exclusively reserved for my presence. When you elevate an earthly outcome to the place of ultimate importance, you are placing a crushing, impossible weight upon it. No human being or constructed reality can bear the immense pressure of being your ultimate source of peace. They will always fail you, leaving you feeling entirely hollow. When that idol inevitably cracks under the pressure, your entire world shatters along with it. I ask you to tear down these subtle idols, not because I'm a demanding tyrant, but because I'm a fiercely loving father who refuses to watch you chain your beautiful soul to a sinking ship. I want your heart to be completely free, anchored only to the eternal bedrock of my grace. There is a sacred law of spiritual physics that you must come to understand. Clinging to the wrong thing actively, stubbornly occupies the exact space meant for the right thing. Your heart is a vessel, and your hands only have so much capacity. If you spend all your time, energy, and emotional bandwidth desperately trying to keep a fading temporary spark alive, you simply do not have the open, available hands required to receive the magnificent, lasting fire I am so eagerly trying to give you. You are huddling in the freezing cold, desperately blowing on a tiny smoking ember, terrified to walk away from it. Meanwhile, I'm standing just a few steps ahead of you, holding open the doors to a brilliantly lit room with a massive roaring hearth designed to warm you for the rest of your days. You cannot have both. You cannot hold on to the broken substitute and embrace the divine masterpiece at the exact same time. You must ask yourself a very difficult, honest question today. Why are you so willing to compromise your own immense value? Why are you willing to eat the leftover crumbs of affection or peace when I have prepared a massive, lavish banquet specifically in your honor? The answer is a profound, paralyzing fear. You settle because the enemy has convinced you that you are fundamentally unlovable or forgotten. He whispers that if you dare to demand the genuine love and the divine purpose you were created for, you will end up completely alone. He uses your deepest insecurities to build a convincing argument that you should just be grateful for whatever meager scraps fall from the table. But I am speaking directly into that dark place of fear right now to awaken a righteous, undeniable desire for true spiritual fulfillment within you. I want to gently but firmly shake you out of your willingness to accept this broken, painful substitute. You are not a forgotten afterthought. You are not a second-class citizen in my kingdom. You are a deeply cherished, intricately designed child of the Most High God. Your worth was established before the foundations of the earth were ever laid, purchased at an incredible infinite price that you can barely begin to fathom. When you settle for a situation that constantly breaks your spirit, you are directly contradicting the incredible value I have placed upon your soul. I want to awaken a holy discontent within your spirit today. I want you to feel a rising, undeniable conviction that you were made for more than just surviving the week. You were made for deep, abiding joy. You were made for relationships that breathe life into your soul and a purpose that ignites your spirit. This righteous desire is not born of arrogance. It is born of a profound, mature recognition of your identity in me. When you truly grasp how carefully you were designed, the very idea of settling for a toxic substitute becomes entirely unthinkable. It is time to look at the situation you are desperately holding on to and see it for what it truly is, an exhausting, inadequate shadow of the glorious reality I have planned for you. The relationship that leaves you constantly questioning your worth is not my best for you. The anxious, frantic striving to prove your value to people who refuse to see it is not my best for you. I have something so much greater, so much deeper, and so much more profoundly satisfying waiting for you. But to step into that reality, you have to be willing to endure the temporary stinging discomfort of the empty space. You have to be willing to sit quietly in the silent hallway, completely trusting that the closed door behind you was a rescue, and the unopened door ahead of you is a magnificent blessing. This requires a radical, transformative shift in your perspective. You must stop looking at the act of letting go as a tragic loss and begin to see it as the ultimate expression of spiritual bravery. Walking away from a comfortable but destructive situation is not a sign of defeat. It takes no courage to stay in a familiar pain. It takes no faith to settle for a predictable disappointment. It takes immense, unshakable courage to stand up, look at a situation that the rest of the world might say is good enough, and declare that your Father has promised you far better. When you finally choose to walk away from the lesser things, you are sending a massive, reverberating declaration into the heavenly realms. You are announcing that you actually believe the promises I have spoken over your life. You are actively aligning your physical reality with your spiritual identity. You are removing the roadblocks of compromise and clearing the grand highway for my ultimate provision to arrive. The moment you refuse to settle, the moment you draw a firm line in the sand and declare that you will no longer tolerate the things that continuously drain your joy, you initiate a beautiful, unstoppable flow of my greater intended blessings. Letting go of this compromise will be the most difficult, beautiful thing you have ever done. It is an act of supreme courage, requiring you to elevate your standards to match the incredible divine value I have placed upon your soul. When you finally unclench your hands and let the broken pieces fall, the immediate sensation is not always a wave of relief. In fact, it is often a profound, breathtaking panic. You have elevated your standards and bravely decided to walk away from the lesser things, but now you find yourself standing on the absolute edge of the life you knew, looking out into a vast, blank expanse. The terror of this completely unknown future threatens to paralyze you entirely. I see you shivering in that sudden, disorienting silence, when carefully made plans unexpectedly shatter the world around you. Suddenly goes completely dark, and every human instinct screams at you to reach frantically backward and grab whatever you just dropped. You are facing the terrifying, unwritten void of tomorrow, feeling utterly exposed, incredibly small, and deeply vulnerable. The path you thought you were going to walk has completely disappeared into the fog, and you do not know which way to turn. But I am right here with you, in the very center of this darkness, and I want to gently guide your trembling heart through this terrifying threshold. The intense fear you feel in this exact moment is the completely natural human response to a sudden loss of visibility. For your entire life, you have operated by relying heavily on your own sight, carefully navigating by the familiar landmarks of your own plans, your predictable routines, and your clearly defined expectations. When those comfortable landmarks are abruptly removed, you feel as though you have lost your gravity, free-falling into an endless abyss with absolutely nothing to hold on to. You look up at me with tear-filled eyes and trembling lips, desperately asking what happens next. You beg for a detailed blueprint, a clear timeline, or even just a tiny, fleeting glimpse of your final destination to make the fear subside. But in this sacred space, I am asking you to embrace a vital, foundational biblical truth. You must learn to walk by faith rather than by sight. Walking by sight is effortless. It requires no divine trust, no relational intimacy, and no real spiritual maturity. Walking by faith, however, is the beautiful sacred invitation to completely close your physical eyes and allow my steady voice to become your only compass. I want to completely and radically shift how you view this present darkness. The enemy of your soul is working overtime to convince you that this unknown territory is a dangerous, empty void, a barren place of divine abandonment, where you will be left to wander aimlessly and alone. He uses your lingering fear of failure and your deep-seated anxiety about the future to paint terrifying, catastrophic pictures in your mind. He whispers that letting go was a massive mistake. But I tell you now, this dark expanse is not a void at all. It is a beautifully blank canvas. It is the sacred unwritten space where I am about to do my absolute greatest work in your life. Stepping into the unknown does not mean stepping off a steep cliff into nothingness. It means stepping directly and safely into my loving, waiting arms. I have already personally surveyed every single inch of this uncharted territory. I am already standing powerfully in your tomorrow, completely in control of the very future that currently brings you so much anxiety. You must deeply understand that my guiding presence in the darkness is infinitely more secure than your own limited vision in the blinding light. When you could clearly see the path ahead, you naturally relied entirely on your own wisdom. You leaned heavily on your own fragile, exhaustible strength to force the outcomes you desired. But human vision is fundamentally flawed, so easily deceived by temporary comforts, shiny distractions, and superficial promises. My divine vision, however, is absolutely flawless. When I lovingly lead you into a space where you cannot see the next step, I am intentionally and mercifully stripping away your unhealthy reliance on the physical world. I am doing this so that you can finally discover the unbreakable eternal security of my spiritual provision. I am teaching you that my presence is more than enough to sustain you. I am showing you that even when the path is entirely shrouded in mystery, the loving guide firmly holding your right hand is absolutely infallible. Genuine, lasting spiritual growth can never truly occur as long as you stubbornly refuse to leave the familiar, comfortable confines of what you already know. Think of the journey of a tiny seed. As long as that seed remains safely stored in a dry, brightly lit glass jar, it is perfectly secure and entirely free from pain. But it is also completely dormant. To ever become the magnificent life-giving tree it was intricately designed to be, that seed must be taken out of its comfortable environment and buried deep in the cold, dark, unknown earth. It must endure the terrifying process of breaking open in the absolute darkness. You are currently resting in that dark, fertile soil. My precious child, I know it feels incredibly heavy. It feels suffocating, and it feels entirely unfamiliar. But you are not being buried in a grave. You are being planted in a garden. This terrifying unknown is the exact environment required for your soul to stretch, to take deep spiritual root, and to finally push upward into a completely new, vibrant level of life. I know exactly how desperately you want to decipher my handwriting right now. You are frantically trying to read the overarching story of your life, flipping quickly through the pages in a panic. But the ink seems entirely blurred, and the language completely foreign. You want to thoroughly understand the why and the how before you are willing to take another step forward. You want guarantees. But true biblical faith does not arrogantly demand a full explanation before it offers humble obedience. I am asking you to trust my proven character entirely, even when you cannot understand my current methods. I am asking you to pause, quiet your mind, and remember every single time I have faithfully delivered you in the past. Did I not sustain your weary spirit through your darkest, longest nights? Have I ever truly abandoned you when you needed me the absolute most? My character is completely perfect. My love for you is fiercely unchanging, and my promises are absolute. If you genuinely know the author, you do not need to panic over the unwritten chapters. Taking this courageous step into the unknown is the ultimate undeniable exercise of your newly elevated standards. It is the beautiful physical manifestation of your profound internal decision to no longer settle for the painful broken substitutes of your past. As you stand trembling on this dark threshold, I want you to feel the profound anchoring safety of my spirit wrapping completely around you. I am not rushing your process. I am not impatiently pulling you forward. I am patiently standing right beside you, gently whispering massive courage into your weary, battle-scarred soul. Every single step you take into this blank expanse is a massive spiritual victory. Every time you consciously choose to place your foot down in the darkness, choosing to trust that I have already placed solid, unshakable ground beneath it, the heavy, rusted chains of your old fears shatter just a little bit more. You are actively learning to walk in the miraculous freedom of total surrender. You will very soon discover that the mystery of tomorrow is not something to be constantly dreaded, but something to be joyfully, eagerly anticipated. When you are no longer trying to meticulously manage and control every tiny detail of your existence, you finally give me the necessary space to completely and wonderfully surprise you. The incredible miracles I have prepared for your future are so far beyond your limited human imagination that if I showed them to you right now, your mind could not even begin to comprehend their magnitude. The darkness you are currently facing is simply the heavy velvet curtain waiting to be dramatically drawn back on the most magnificent, breathtaking act of your entire life. Do not let the temporary fear of what you cannot physically see rob you of the spectacular, enduring blessings I am currently building for you in the unseen realm. Let the profound peace of this truth settle deeply into the very center of your chest. Breathe it in slowly. You are entirely safe in my care. The future is not a chaotic, terrifying storm waiting in the distance to destroy you. It is a carefully orchestrated, beautiful masterpiece eagerly waiting to welcome you. I am gently coaxing you right now to take that first, real, incredibly courageous step of complete surrender. It is time to leave the familiar pain completely behind. It is time to stop looking backward at the door that just closed and begin walking confidently, head held high, into the vast, open, magnificent space of my grace. As you lift your weary foot to take this terrifying but beautiful step, we must now prepare your heart for what this daily walk will actually require, clearly defining the exact active process of placing your broken pieces safely into my capable hands. We must talk about what happens when you hand those broken pieces to me. For so long, the world has taught you a damaging lie about what it actually means to surrender. A culture of relentless striving tells you to never give up, to fight harder, and to force your way through every obstacle. Because of this, you have come to believe that surrender is a white flag waved in absolute defeat. You view it as a humiliating admission that you simply were not strong, smart, or faithful enough to win the battle. The enemy uses this lie to whisper that yielding to my will means giving up in total despair, resigning yourself to a passive life of misery, and watching helplessly as your most precious dreams are cruelly dismantled. But I want to completely redefine this word within your weary spirit today. In my kingdom, surrender is never a crushing defeat. It is not a sign of personal weakness, nor is it a failure of your character. It is instead a triumphant, beautifully powerful declaration of faith. It is the magnificent, liberating moment when you finally realize that the exhausting battle you were fighting was never yours to win in the first place. Surrender is not throwing away your hope. It is the courageous act of transferring the heavy weight of your hope from your own tired shoulders directly onto mine. Let us look closely at what this active, deliberate process actually looks like in your daily life. Surrender is not a single fleeting emotion that washes over you during a Sunday service, nor is it a magical one-time prayer that instantly erases all your anxiety forever. It is a deeply intentional, intensely practical daily action. It looks like sitting quietly, feeling the frantic urge to force a solution, and choosing instead to keep your hands still. It looks like intentionally prying your trembling fingers one by one off the desperate desires and rigid timelines you have clung to for so long. I know how your hands ache as you open them. I feel the intense physical and emotional resistance rising within your chest as you release your grip on the specific outcome you firmly believed you needed in order to survive. But as you open your hands, you are doing something incredibly profound in the spiritual realm. You are deliberately making massive space for my grace to operate. You are taking the shattered, jagged pieces of your deeply held plans, gathering them up, and willingly placing them directly into my capable healing hands. When you place those broken pieces into my hands, you are performing the absolute highest act of spiritual worship. Without speaking a word, you declare that you trust my perfect character far more than your limited understanding. You are humbly acknowledging that while your vision is heavily clouded by fear, exhaustion, and temporary pain, my vision for your life is completely flawless and driven by an absolute, unchanging love. I want you to know that I do not take those fragile, broken pieces from you just to throw them away, and I certainly never mock your sincere efforts to hold them together. I receive them from you with the utmost tenderness. I hold them safely, recognizing the immense pain, the deep disappointment, and the beautiful, fierce love it took for you to finally let them go. This sacred exchange is not a passive acceptance of sorrow. It is an active, deeply vulnerable step into complete relational intimacy with me. You are finally removing the heavy, rusted armor of your own self-reliance and allowing me to be the fiercely protective, deeply loving father I have always desired to be in your life. But I must gently and honestly warn you, my precious child, this beautiful act of surrender is rarely a one-and-done event. Because you live in a fragile human body and possess a deeply ingrained natural instinct to protect yourself from pain, you will inevitably experience a constant daily, sometimes even hourly friction between your flesh and your newly awakened spirit. The human flesh is utterly terrified of the unknown. It completely despises vulnerability and demands immediate visible guarantees. The very moment you release your grip and step into the quiet, unseen peace of my presence, your flesh will begin to panic. It will desperately urge you to reach right back into the fire and reclaim the illusion of control. You will wake up in the middle of the night with your heart racing, and the immediate overwhelming temptation will be to take back the very burden you so bravely laid at my feet just a few hours before. The frantic, screaming desire of your flesh to fix the situation will violently clash with your spirit's desperate, exhausted need for peaceful submission. When this friction occurs, do not feel shame. Do not listen to the enemy when he says your faith has failed simply because your anxiety briefly returned. True mature spiritual growth is not found in the complete absence of fear. It is found in exactly what you choose to do in the very moment the panic strikes. When the overwhelming urge to reclaim control washes over your mind, I am asking you to simply pause. Breathe deeply into your lungs. Acknowledge the fear that is trying to consume you, but completely refuse to let it dictate your next action. This is the true anatomy of surrender. It is the repeated, deliberate, stubborn choice to leave the heavy burden with me over and over again, every single time the enemy tries to hand it right back to you. If you have to consciously surrender the exact same fear 50 times before lunchtime, then I will patiently, gently, and lovingly receive it from you 50 times. I am never frustrated by your humanity. I am deeply moved by your continuous obedience and your persistent, beautiful desire to trust me, even when every single fiber of your being is screaming at you to take the wheel. Over time, this repetitive, deliberate action of yielding your will to mine will profoundly and permanently transform your internal landscape. The heavy, suffocating anxiety that has entirely defined your days will begin to lose its toxic grip on your mind. By consistently choosing quiet obedience over frantic control, you are forging a deep, unbreakable intimacy with my spirit. You are learning the gentle, unforced, beautiful rhythms of my grace. You are discovering through real experience that my hands are infinitely more capable of holding your life together than your hands ever were. Surrender is the beautiful, quiet realization that you are not a helpless captive being dragged against your will into the terrifying unknown. You are a deeply cherished, incredibly valuable child being safely and intentionally carried by a loving Father. The very act of letting go, which once terrified you to your core, will slowly become your greatest source of relief and strength. I want you to completely stop fighting against the strong, beautiful current of my grace. For years, you have been desperately swimming upstream, fighting against the natural flow of my divine will for your life, completely and utterly exhausting yourself in the process. I am inviting you today to simply stop fighting. Lower your tired arms. Lean back into the living water. Let the incredibly strong current of my perfect love finally carry you. You do not need to kick, you do not need to struggle, and you certainly do not need to panic. I know exactly where this river is taking you, and the destination is more beautiful than you can possibly imagine. As you learn to permanently yield your rigid expectations and fully embrace this profound relational intimacy with me, your weary soul will finally begin to taste true, lasting freedom. But as you lay down your heavy weapons of self-reliance and allow yourself to be safely carried forward, you will suddenly find yourself in a quiet, seemingly empty space. We must now prepare your heart for this delicate season, teaching you how to firmly anchor your soul and cultivate profound joy when the external miracle has not yet arrived. When you finally lay down your heavy weapons of self-reliance and allow yourself to be safely carried forward, you will suddenly find yourself in a quiet, seemingly empty space. This is the sacred season of waiting. You have bravely opened your hands and released the broken pieces, but the new beautiful masterpiece has not yet been placed into your grasp. I know exactly how this vulnerable middle ground feels to your weary heart. You look around and see absolutely no immediate change in your physical circumstances. The storm has not completely passed. The skies are still gray, and the silence in the room is deafening. The natural human instinct is to immediately begin scanning the horizon, desperately looking for the slightest hint of a rescue ship. You check your circumstances daily. You try to read the shifting moods of those around you, and you obsessively watch for any tiny sign that your situation is finally being resolved. But I want to gently draw your attention away from that distant horizon and bring it safely back to the exact place where you are standing right now. I am here to encourage comfort, teach wisdom, and point your tired soul toward hope. There is a deep, hidden danger in obsessively watching the horizon for your resolution. When you do this, you are entirely severing yourself from the profound grace that is abundantly available to you in this very moment. You are falling right back into an unhealthy dependency, tying your internal joy strictly to a sudden change in your external circumstances. You whisper quietly to yourself that you will finally be able to exhale just as soon as the problem is fixed. You tell yourself that you will experience true peace when the relationship is restored, when the financial breakthrough arrives, or when the door of opportunity finally swings wide open. But tying your happiness to an unpredictable external outcome is a heavy, exhausting form of spiritual bondage. It places your precious peace at the complete mercy of a chaotic world, rather than securely resting it in my unchanging character. True comfort during hardship is found in trusting me, not in demanding immediate answers. I want to gently but firmly challenge the strict, rigid conditions you have placed on your own happiness. Demanding a visible miracle before you are willing to trust me completely limits what I can do within your soul. It essentially tells me that my presence is not enough to sustain you, and that you require absolute physical proof of my goodness before you will grant me your peace. If I were to suddenly fix all your earthly problems this very second, waving a hand to instantly resolve the conflict that is causing you so much intense pain, you would undoubtedly feel a massive rush of relief. But that relief would only be entirely temporary, because your heart has not yet learned how to rest in the unknown. The moment a new problem arose, and in this broken, fragile world, a new problem always will, you would immediately spiral right back into the exact same frantic anxiety. Growth comes through reflection, patience, and learning to trust before the breakthrough arrives. This is exactly why I have established a beautiful, unwavering foundational rule for your spiritual journey. My unshakable peace must absolutely come before my miraculous provision. True lasting comfort cannot ever be found in the sudden fixing of your earthly problems. It can only be found in the infinite, unfailing depths of my daily presence. The most important breakthrough you will ever experience must happen internally, deeply rooted within your own spirit, long before it ever manifests externally in your physical circumstances. I am intentionally using this quiet, uncomfortable waiting season to perform a massive, miraculous healing on your heart. I am severing your desperate addiction to predictable outcomes and teaching you how to cultivate a beautiful oasis of calm amidst your completely unresolved storms. The inner peace you develop now is far more vital than the temporary theatrical miracles you have been begging for. Finding rest in the waiting is not a passive, lazy resignation. It does not mean you simply give up and stop caring about your future. Instead, it is a profoundly active, deeply courageous choice to stop living in the terrifying imaginary what-ifs of tomorrow and start living fully in the beautiful I am of today. It is the deliberate hourly decision to sit down right in the middle of your unresolved mess, look directly into the howling wind and the crashing waves, and declare that your soul is entirely well, simply because I am sitting right there beside you. You do not need to wait for the storm to run out of rain before you allow yourself to find shelter. I am your absolute shelter right now. My love is not something that will arrive magically on the day your prayers are finally answered. My love is the firm, unshakable ground beneath your feet at this very second. This is where you find profound hope during hardship. I see the profound exhaustion that still lingers in your tear-filled eyes when the silence stretches on far longer than you ever anticipated. The waiting room of life is one of the most difficult, agonizing spaces for a human being to occupy, because it forces you to face the raw, unedited reality of your own impatience, fear, and profound doubt. The enemy will constantly pace outside the door of your heart, whispering cruelly through the cracks that I have completely forgotten you, or that this waiting season is entirely pointless. He desperately wants you to become so frustrated by the divine delay that you get up, storm out of the room in anger, and try to force a premature conclusion. But I am gently asking you to stay seated. I am asking you to lean your weary head against my shoulder and simply breathe. The wait is never ever pointless. It is a highly productive, meticulously designed season of spiritual preparation. While you are waiting for your external circumstances to change, I am actively upgrading your internal capacity to handle the massive blessing that is coming. If I handed you the miracle right now, while your spirit is still completely frantic and desperate for control, the blessing would instantly become a new idol, and the massive weight of maintaining it would eventually crush you. I love you far too much to give you a magnificent gift that you are not yet spiritually strong enough to carry. So I lovingly make you wait. I allow the silence to stretch, not to torture you, but to completely burn away the deep impurities of your self-reliance. I want to gently bring you to a beautiful surrendered place where you are entirely satisfied with just me. When you finally reach the quiet point where you can honestly say that you do not need the situation to change, in order for you to be joyful, you will have permanently conquered the wait. You will transition from fear to a gentle, beautiful peace. You are actively learning to shift your intense focus entirely away from desperately seeking a sign, and instead, quietly resting in my proven character. I have always been deeply faithful to you. Look back at the long, intricate tapestry of your life and clearly see the countless times I provided exactly what you needed, precisely when you needed it. I have never been late, and I have never abandoned you in the wilderness. That exact same faithful, loving God is holding your current situation entirely in His hands. You can afford to close your eyes, take a deep, steadying breath, and stop trying to frantically manage the clock. The very moment you stop obsessively watching the horizon for your rescue, you will suddenly realize that the rescuer is already sitting right there in the boat with you, gently speaking profound peace to your racing, anxious mind. As this beautiful, profound internal peace begins to settle deeply into your weary bones, something absolutely remarkable happens. The intense burning desperation for a quick fix slowly fades away, completely replaced by a quiet, steady rhythm of divine grace. You begin to wake up in the morning without the heavy, suffocating dread of unresolved problems crushing your chest. You start to actually notice the small, daily mercies I scatter beautifully along your path, the warmth of the morning sun, the gentle breeze against your face, the quiet moments of stillness. Things you were completely blind to when you were frantically staring at the distant horizon. You are discovering the profound, life-altering secret that true, abiding joy is completely independent of your external reality. It is a locked, unshakable vault within your spirit, guarded entirely by my unconditional love and boundless mercy. Stay here in this beautiful oasis with me for a while. Drink deeply from the living water of my presence, and allow your entirely exhausted soul to be fully rejuvenated. The incredible peace you are experiencing right now is not a temporary distraction from your pain. It is the permanent, unshakable foundation upon which your entire magnificent future will be built. You have stopped running, and you have finally found true rest in the waiting. But in order for this newly discovered oasis to fully flourish and produce the magnificent fruit I intend for your life, there is one more essential process we must endure together. There are old attachments, lingering habits, and completely misaligned desires that are secretly stealing the vital nourishment meant for your newly planted peace. We must now turn our full attention to the delicate, sometimes painful, but entirely necessary work of carefully removing everything that hinders your incredible growth. To truly understand this delicate work, you must begin to see your soul, the way I see it, as a magnificent, meticulously cultivated garden. When you finally stop running and allow yourself to find rest in my presence, I am able to walk through the quiet garden of your heart and carefully inspect what is growing there. I look closely at every branch, every root, and every winding vine. I see the incredible, vibrant potential for life within you, a potential so vast that it takes your breath away. But I also see the overgrown areas, the wild, tangled vines of old habits, and the heavy, drooping branches of relationships and plans that are completely misaligned with your true purpose. These attachments may look entirely normal to you. You have lived with them for so long that they feel like a permanent part of your identity. You have watered them with your tears, fed them with your energy, and desperately tried to force them to bloom, but they are not producing the life-giving fruit I have purposed for you. They are merely surviving, and in their survival, they are secretly stealing the vital, life-sustaining nourishment meant for the beautiful new growth I am actively trying to bring forth. To save the harvest, I must bring out the shears. I must initiate the painful, profoundly necessary process of divine pruning. I want to speak directly to the stinging, very real pain you feel when the shear finally makes its cut. I do not minimize this pain. My child, I know exactly how deeply it hurts when something you loved, something you heavily relied upon, or something you desperately hoped for is suddenly severed from your life. The act of pruning always feels violently abrupt to the branch. When a defining relationship ends, when a long-held dream completely collapses, or when a perfectly crafted timeline is entirely uprooted, the immediate sensation is one of profound devastation. You look at the empty space where that deep attachment used to be, and it feels as though a vital part of your very soul has been cruelly amputated. The enemy will immediately rush into that bleeding space and whisper that I am punishing you. He will desperately try to convince your mind that this removal is a senseless act of divine destruction, designed only to leave you barren, lonely, and permanently broken. He wants you to stare at the severed branches lying on the ground and weep over them until you completely lose your faith in the gardener. But I am asking you to lift your tear-filled eyes away from the dirt and look directly at my hands. Look at the absolute care, the gentle precision, and the overwhelming protective love with which I am holding you during this agonizing reduction. You must learn the difference between destruction and divine pruning. Destruction is reckless, careless, and driven by anger, leaving behind nothing but ruined ashes. But pruning is highly intentional, exquisitely delicate, and driven entirely by a beautiful vision of future abundance. The cuts I make are never random. I do not remove a single thing from your life without a perfect reason. Every time you feel the sharp sting of a closed door, a sudden departure, or a definitive no to your most desperate prayers, you are experiencing the masterful stroke of my pruning shears. I am systematically cutting away the dead weight that is pulling you backward. I am completely removing the toxic influences that are slowly poisoning your peace. I am stripping away the heavy, suffocating expectations of other people so that your spirit can finally breathe. These dead or misaligned branches, though they feel so deeply familiar and comfortable, are actively choking the life out of your calling. If I were to leave them attached to you out of a misguided sense of pity, you would eventually wither completely. You would never become the strong, vibrant, spiritually mature believer I intricately designed you to be. The pain of the cut is the absolute guarantee of your future health. It is the fierce protective love of a father who entirely refuses to let his child settle for a barren existence. Think deeply about the spiritual energy you possess. It is a precious, finite resource in this earthly realm. When you are desperately holding on to a relationship that constantly drains your self-worth, or when you are pouring all your emotional bandwidth into a plan that was never ordained by me, you are completely wasting the vital nourishment meant for your true destiny. Your heart only has so much capacity to love, to hope, and to grow. The magnificent fruit I intend to cultivate in your life, profound peace, unshakable joy, and a world-changing purpose, requires massive amounts of spiritual nourishment. It requires your focused attention and your completely undivided faith. As long as the dead branches remain, they will continually siphon off that life-giving sap. The wrong people will exhaust the energy meant for the right people. The wrong pursuits will completely consume the time meant for your divine calling. By forcefully removing these misaligned attachments, I am instantly redirecting the flow of my grace directly into the healthiest, most vital parts of your spirit. I am cutting off the heavy, relentless drain so that the living water can finally reach the absolute highest branches of your life. What currently feels to you like a catastrophic loss is actually a miraculous divine redirection of your strength. I know that looking at the empty spaces left behind is incredibly difficult. Nature completely abhors a vacuum, and your fragile human heart is no different. When the pruning is fresh, the empty space feels cold, terrifying, and deeply lonely. You have become so accustomed to the emotional clutter, to the constant noise of striving, and to the heavy weight of those old attachments, that the new lightness feels entirely unnatural to you. You will be fiercely tempted to immediately rush out and fill that newly created void with another lesser substitute, just to stop the aching. But I am gently, firmly asking you to let the empty space remain empty for a season. Do not rush to bandage the wound with temporary distractions. Do not exhaust yourself trying to tape the dead branches back onto the tree. Let the open space breathe. This vital open emptiness is absolutely required for your true calling to flourish. It is the sacred, cleared ground where your greatest miracles will soon take root. I am teaching you right now to stop mourning what was cut away and to begin eagerly anticipating the magnificent growth that this painful reduction has finally made possible. The barrenness you see right now is not the end of your story. It is the beautifully prepared canvas for your greatest chapter. When you can finally shift your perspective to clearly see my careful hands at work in your seasons of painful subtraction, your entire journey will fundamentally change. You will no longer view loss as a cruel punishment, but as a severe mercy. You will actually begin to thank me for the doors I locked, the relationships I ended, and the prayers I answered with a firm, protective no. You will stand in the middle of your pruned, completely stripped down life, and instead of weeping over the scattered leaves, you will feel a deep, surging thrill of hope. You will realize that because you have endured the shear, you are now perfectly positioned to bear fruit that will outlast your lifetime. The sharp pain of the pruning process is slowly fading gently, giving way to the glorious warm sunlight of my unending grace. You are lighter now. You are stronger now. You are entirely ready to grow. But as the new buds begin to push through the freshly healed wood, we must ensure that the very core of who you are is anchored securely. We must completely rebuild the foundation of your identity so that your worth is never again defined by what you lose, but solely by whose you are. When the sharp sting of the pruning shears finally fades and the fallen branches are gently cleared away, you are left standing in a profound and deeply unsettling quiet. This is the delicate moment where your greatest spiritual battle shifts from what you have lost to who you actually are. For so long, your entire sense of self was completely intertwined with the very things I just had to remove. You look down at your empty hands, and then look inward, facing a severe, quiet devastation. You are suddenly asking yourself a terrifying question. If I am no longer the person holding that relationship together, if I am no longer the architect of that specific dream, and if I am no longer defined by that exhausting struggle, then who am I? This massive identity crisis is a completely natural, inevitable consequence of letting go. When a defining relationship ends, or a heavily relied upon plan is suddenly completely uprooted, it feels as though your own reflection has been completely erased from the mirror. You feel entirely unanchored, drifting in a vast sea of uncertainty, desperately searching for a familiar shoreline to tell you that you still matter in this world. I see this quiet devastation washing over you. I see the tears of deep confusion that fall when you wake up in the morning and realize the massive weight you used to carry is gone, leaving you feeling strangely hollow. For years, you unconsciously tied your inherent value to your incredible, exhausting ability to manage crises. You wore your frantic striving like a heavy badge of honor. You genuinely believed that your ultimate worth was directly determined by how much you could endure, how fiercely you could fight for a broken situation, and how much of yourself you could completely sacrifice just to keep other people happy. The world constantly taught you this dangerous, relentless lie. It told you that your identity is built entirely upon what you produce, what you achieve, and who you manage to please. But this is a fragile, crumbling foundation, completely incapable of sustaining a beautiful human soul. When those temporary worldly outcomes are removed, the foundation collapses entirely, leaving you feeling as though your very existence has completely lost its meaning and direction. I want to speak a profound, unshakable truth over your weary spirit right now. Your worth was never for a single second tied to your exhausting ability to hold a broken situation together. Your true value is not determined by the plans you successfully execute, the praise you receive, or the earthly titles you desperately cling to in this temporary world. When a door suddenly closes in your face, or when someone you deeply loved chooses to walk away, it does not diminish your inherent value by even a tiny fraction of a degree. The rejection of a human being or the failure of an earthly endeavor is never a reflection of your divine worth. You must stop looking at the newly emptied spaces in your life as devastating evidence of your own inadequacy. The very fact that you could not force a dead branch to produce living fruit is not a failure of your character. It is simply the natural boundary of your human limitation. You are attempting to find your ultimate identity in fragile, created things entirely, forgetting that your true identity can only be found in the eternal Creator. We must now begin the beautiful, essential task of completely rebuilding your fractured identity, this time on a foundation that cannot ever be shaken, cracked, or completely destroyed by the unpredictable storms of this world. This requires a massive, deliberate shift in your core sense of self. You must gently but firmly detach your personal value from all temporary worldly outcomes and firmly, permanently root it in my eternal, unchanging love for you. I want you to close your eyes and listen closely to the steady, reassuring rhythm of my grace. Before you ever achieved a single earthly goal, before you ever fought for a single relationship, and before you ever experienced the crushing weight of your current disappointments, you were entirely known, deeply cherished, and perfectly loved by me. Your identity is not something you have to frantically earn through endless striving or desperately maintain through perfect performance. It is a magnificent, sacred gift that was freely given to you the very moment I breathed life into your lungs, a gift that can never be revoked. You are my beloved child. That is the beginning, the middle, and the absolute end of your true identity. It is a title that can never be pruned away, never be fired, never be divorced, and never be stolen by the chaotic shifting of your earthly circumstances. When you finally allow this profound truth to penetrate the deepest, most broken places of your heart, a miraculous healing begins to take place. The severe identity crisis that has left you feeling so incredibly lost and disoriented will begin to entirely lose its paralyzing grip. You will start to realize that the painful removal of those heavy, misaligned branches did not actually diminish you at all. Rather, it completely revealed the strong, unshakable trunk of the beautiful tree I created you to be. You do not need to be the savior of your own story anymore, because I have already saved you. You do not need to prove your worth to a world that constantly demands more, because I have already declared that you are entirely enough just as you are. This complete shifting of your foundation requires daily, intentional grace. When the lingering feelings of worthlessness attempt to creep back into your mind, quietly whispering that you are a failure because your original plans did not survive, you must actively combat those lies with my eternal truth. I am actively teaching you how to find deep, sustaining hope during hardship. Every time you feel the sharp, sudden panic of not knowing who you are without the things you lost, I want you to immediately turn your focus toward me. Ask me to continuously reveal the depth of my compassion and my mercy. Let my voice be the only voice that gets to dictate your true value. Do not allow the painful memories of your past mistakes or the stinging reality of your current empty hands to write the narrative of your entire future. You are not defined by the closed doors behind you, nor by the dreams that slip through your fingers. You are completely, beautifully defined by the nail-scarred hands that are currently holding yours. As you slowly and courageously let go of the exhausting need to find your identity in temporary things, you will begin to experience a profound, breathtaking freedom. The heavy, suffocating pressure to perform and to fix everything will completely evaporate. You will start to wake up in the morning feeling a gentle, steady confidence that has absolutely nothing to do with what is on your daily schedule, and everything to do with the fact that you are fiercely loved by the Creator of the universe. This is the magnificent, deeply secure foundation upon which your new life will be entirely built. It is a foundation of pure grace, completely immune to the destructive forces of human rejection and earthly failure. You will begin to look in the mirror and finally see exactly what I see, a beautifully resilient, spiritually maturing child of God who has bravely survived the absolute hardest seasons of their life and is now standing taller, wiser, and stronger than ever before. Rise gracefully from the ashes of your profound disappointment. My precious child, brush the dust of those shattered expectations off your weary shoulders. You are stepping into a glorious new season of immense spiritual clarity, where the deceptive shadows of your past attachments can no longer dictate your worth. You are stepping out of the exhausting, frantic performance of your past and directly into the quiet, unshakable rest of your true divine inheritance. Feel the solid, immovable ground of my love completely supporting your weary feet. You are safe here. You are completely whole here. And as you stand tall, beautifully, and permanently defined entirely by my grace, you will feel a new, powerful strength surging through your awakened spirit. But as you begin to boldly walk forward on this magnificent new foundation, you must be completely prepared for the inevitable moments when the familiar shadows try to call you back. The enemy will always attempt to make the past look far more appealing than the future. We must now fortify your newly healed heart against the sudden powerful temptation to turn around and reach for exactly what I just delivered you from. When the silence of this new space settles in, and the initial adrenaline of your bold surrender begins to fade, a profound temptation will rise within your heart. It starts as a gentle whisper, a fleeting memory of the way things used to be. The human mind has a fragile tendency to romanticize the past whenever it is confronted with the unsettling quiet of the present moment. You will find yourself sitting in the stillness, free from the heavy burdens I just removed, and suddenly you will miss their familiar weight. You will begin to look back. Nostalgia is one of the enemy's most deceptive weapons. It acts as a powerful anesthetic, numbing your memory to the profound pain, the exhausting anxiety, and the suffocating despair that originally drove you to your knees in surrender. You will remember the rare moments of comfort in that old relationship, forgetting the daily disrespect that was actively crushing your spirit. You will vividly recall the predictable paycheck of that misaligned career, ignoring the toxic environment that was actively draining your soul. This is the moment where your newly built foundation will face its greatest test. The profound danger of looking backward is that it entirely halts your forward momentum. In your beautiful unfolding spiritual journey, growth happens gradually, but this gradual growth requires your eyes to remain fixed on the road ahead. When you turn your head to gaze longingly at the closed doors behind you, you stop walking toward the magnificent open horizons I have prepared for you. The enemy wants nothing more than to see you paralyzed by regret. He will send massive, unpredictable waves of sudden doubt crashing over your mind. He will whisper that you made a terrible mistake. He will try to convince you that this quiet waiting season is not a divine pause, but rather a permanent barren wasteland. He knows that if he can make the empty space feel unbearable and long, your natural human frailty will fiercely urge you to reach right back into the past and desperately reclaim the very things I just performed a miracle to deliver you from. I want to clearly remind you of a profound biblical truth that has echoed through the generations. Attempting to return to what I have already rescued you from is a form of spiritual captivity. Think of my children in the ancient wilderness. I miraculously delivered them from generations of brutal slavery. I split the sea, destroyed their oppressors, and led them into absolute freedom. Yet the very moment they felt the harsh, unpredictable hunger of the unknown desert, they immediately began to weep for the chains of Egypt. They romanticized the leeks and the garlic of their captivity, entirely forgetting the cruel whips of their taskmasters. They were willing to actively trade their miraculous, divinely appointed future for the toxic familiarity of their past. You are facing that exact same choice today. When the waiting season feels impossibly difficult and your flesh demands immediate comfort, you must absolutely refuse to return to your own personal Egypt. You must deeply fortify your resolve and learn the vital discipline of robust spiritual perseverance. This means actively choosing to trust me, finding hope during hardship even when every single emotion in your body is desperately screaming at you to turn around. Emotions are incredibly valid, and I hold your tears with the utmost tenderness, but emotions are also highly deceptive. They are fleeting, shifting shadows that entirely react to the temperature of the moment. If you allow your sudden frantic feelings of loneliness or doubt to dictate your actions, you will run right back into the burning building I just pulled you out of. True spiritual endurance is not the absence of these intense temptations. It is the deliberate, courageous choice to stand firmly in the present moment and flatly refuse to take a single step backward. To survive these inevitable waves of nostalgia, you need highly practical, deeply rooted spiritual tools. You cannot simply sit passively and hope the temptation goes away. You must actively combat the loud, relentless whispers of regret by firmly anchoring your anxious mind in my written promises. When the enemy tells you that you are entirely forgotten, in this quiet season, I want you to open my word and read aloud the unshakable truth that I will never leave you nor forsake you. When a wave of panic tells you that you have ruined your life, by letting go of that plan. I want you to actively declare that my plans for you are good, meant to give you a future and a profound hope. Let the scriptures actively encourage comfort, teach wisdom, and point your tired soul toward hope. You must violently replace the deceptive highlight reel of your past with the absolute reality of my perfect character. This is how you actively rewire your heart. Every single time the temptation arises to pick up the phone, to check the social media of the person who walked away, or to frantically return to the situation that clearly closed its doors to you, I want you to immediately pause and bring that overwhelming impulse directly to me. Honest, simple prayer brings peace, hope, comfort, and encouragement. Talk to me about the intense craving for the past. Do not hide your struggle from me, feeling deeply ashamed that you want to go back. I already see the intense tug of war happening within your spirit. Bring the raw ache of your loneliness into our quiet space. Say to me, Father, the past looks so beautiful right now, and the present feels so incredibly empty. Please give me the profound strength to stand still. I will instantly meet you in that vulnerable prayer. I will lovingly wrap my arms around your trembling shoulders, gently remind you of exactly why we left that place, and completely restore your fading resolve. You must remember that you cannot selectively reclaim the past. If you choose to go back and pick up the relationship that was completely destroying your peace, you must also pick up the anxiety, the sleepless nights, and the profound loss of identity that came with it. If you return to the idol of frantic self-reliance, you must also invite back the crushing weight of holding the entire world on your own tired shoulders. The things you left behind were actively preventing you from experiencing the magnificent, abundant life I designed for you. I lovingly removed them to save your soul from a slow, barren withering. To reach back for them now would be to actively reject the incredible healing I am currently performing within you. I am asking you to be incredibly brave today, my precious child. When the quiet waiting season feels unbearable and long, I want you to deliberately plant your feet on the newly laid, perfectly secure foundation of my grace and refuse to move. You must sever the invisible emotional cords that are desperately trying to pull you backward. Look directly at the memories of your past. Acknowledge the beautiful parts of what they once were, and then deliberately say goodbye. Grieving the loss of what used to be is entirely healthy. Obsessing over it and attempting to resurrect it is completely destructive. You are a completely new creation, standing on the edge of a profoundly new season. The vibrant life I have meticulously prepared for you cannot ever be found in the graveyard of your past attachments. Every time you successfully resist the powerful temptation to look back, your spiritual muscles grow significantly stronger. The intense burning pull of nostalgia will slowly begin to lose its toxic hypnotic power over your mind. You will eventually wake up in the morning, and the very first thought in your head will no longer be a desperate longing for what you surrendered. Instead, you will feel a rising, breathtaking anticipation for what I am about to do next. You are actively learning how to trust me in the dark, and that beautiful, persistent trust is forging a deep, unshakable intimacy between us that no earthly storm will ever be able to destroy. Your faith is growing naturally, anchoring your soul in a gentle peace that surpasses all understanding. Keep your eyes fixed firmly on the beautiful horizon of my perfect, unfolding will. The quiet you are experiencing right now is not the terrifying silence of an empty, forgotten room. It is the highly productive, deeply sacred silence of an artist carefully preparing a magnificent new canvas. You have successfully let go of the broken pieces. You have beautifully found true rest in my presence. You have bravely endured the painful cut of the pruning shears, and you have completely rebuilt your identity upon the unshakable bedrock of my eternal love. Now you must boldly protect this magnificent progress. Do not let the deceptive whispers of regret steal the incredible freedom you have fought so incredibly hard to obtain. As you firmly lock the door to your past and bravely turn your face toward the brilliant light of your future, a completely new challenge will gently rise before you. We must now turn our full attention to exactly how you will walk through the remaining days of this waiting season, teaching you how to actively participate in your own beautiful preparation, without ever once stepping out of the peaceful rhythms of my grace. As you actively learn to walk through these remaining days of preparation, something extraordinary is about to happen within your heart. You have stood your ground against the powerful waves of nostalgia, and you have bravely chosen to keep your eyes fixed on me instead of the shadows of your past. Now I want to gently prepare you for a profound, undeniable shift in the overall emotional intensity of your journey. You have spent so much time in the trenches, fighting a grueling daily battle against your own frantic thoughts. You have wrestled with your doubts in the dark, and you have chosen quiet obedience, even when your flesh demanded immediate action. Because you have faithfully endured this difficult active preparation, without stepping out of the peaceful rhythms of my grace, the soil of your heart is finally ready. This is the moment where the heavy, suffocating chains of anxiety that have bound you for so long finally shatter completely. You will not have to force this to happen, nor will you have to strive for it through exhausting mental gymnastics. It will arrive beautifully, descending upon you like a quiet, sudden snowfall in the middle of a raging storm. This is the arrival of my supernatural peace, a profound, settling comfort that completely defies all human logic and earthly understanding. I want to vividly describe how this will feel, so that when it washes over you, you will instantly recognize it as my deliberate, miraculous gift. You will remember the exact moment it happens. You might be engaged in the most ordinary routine, washing the dishes in the quiet of your kitchen, driving down a familiar road to work, or simply sitting in your living room with a warm cup of coffee. Suddenly, without any external warning, you will realize that the agonizing, sleepless fear that used to dictate your every waking thought is simply gone. The physical sensation of this massive spiritual victory is breathtaking. For years, you have carried a tight, painful knot of dread in the very center of your chest. You have walked with your shoulders hunched, bracing yourself for the next inevitable disaster. But in this beautiful moment of arrival, that knot will completely dissolve. Your shoulders will finally drop. You will take a deep, full breath of air, and for the very first time in what feels like an eternity, your mind will be entirely silent. The desperate, exhausting need to control the outcome of your situation will vanish beautifully, replaced by a deep, settling, unshakable contentment in my holy presence. You will look around, waiting for the familiar panic to rush back in. But the door to that prison cell has been permanently broken off its hinges. The enemy can no longer use the weapon of anxiety against you, because I have completely flooded the battlefield with my glorious, overwhelming light. What makes this peace so profoundly supernatural is that it arrives completely independently of your circumstances. This is a crucial life-altering distinction. The world teaches that peace is only possible when all your earthly problems are perfectly solved, when every bill is paid, and when every relationship is flawlessly repaired. But I am giving you a peace that entirely bypasses your human understanding. When this internal miracle takes root, your physical circumstances will not have changed. The storm will still be raging fiercely outside your window. The bank account might still look exactly the same. The medical report might still be entirely unresolved, and the external world will still be loudly demanding your complete panic. Yet you will look directly at the very situations that once caused you absolute paralyzing terror, and you will realize they now hold absolutely zero power over your steady spirit. You will remember the long, agonizing nights when you used to pace the floors of your home, weeping in sheer desperation as you tried to calculate a way out of your suffering. You will recall how your hands used to tremble and how your heart would violently race at the mere mention of your greatest fear. Now, in the profound brilliance of this supernatural arrival, you will gaze at that exact same fear, and your heartbeat will remain perfectly calm. Your hands will be completely still. You will experience the miraculous reality of facing your giant without flinching. Not because the giant has disappeared, but because you finally realize how incredibly small it is compared to the overwhelming majesty of my power. You will stand in the center of the unresolved chaos and feel an overwhelming, inexplicable joy. You will marvel at your own calmness. You will wonder how it is even logically possible to feel so entirely secure when everything around you is still visibly broken. This beautiful paradox is the ultimate proof of the internal miracle I have been meticulously working within you. I have carefully rewired your spiritual nervous system. I have detached your ultimate joy from the fragile, unpredictable outcomes of this temporary world. And I have securely connected it directly to the infinite, unchanging reality of my perfect love. You are discovering through undeniable experience that true spiritual victory is not always the instant removal of the fiery furnace. It is the magnificent, awe-inspiring realization that I am standing right there in the flames beside you, ensuring that you will not be burned. I want you to joyfully celebrate this massive spiritual victory today. Look closely at how far you have come, my precious child. Just a short season ago, the mere thought of not knowing your own future would send your mind spiraling into endless, terrifying scenarios of disaster. You were entirely consumed by the heavy, impossible burden of playing God in your own life. You wept over closed doors. You begged for premature breakthroughs, and you fought fiercely to hold on to branches that were actively destroying your soul. But look at you now. You have completely transitioned from a frightened, completely exhausted soul into a deeply anchored, unshakable believer who knows with absolute certainty that my love is enough. You have survived the pruning. You have successfully navigated the severe identity crisis, and you have refused to turn back to the empty comforts of your past. Do you see the magnificent strength that has been forged within you? This is what a battle-tested faith truly looks like. It is not a fragile, untested optimism that shatters the moment a real trial appears. It is a robust, enduring, beautifully weathered trust that has survived the absolute darkest valleys and has emerged completely victorious. You have allowed the intense heat of the waiting season to burn away everything that was false, leaving only the pure, unadulterated gold of your devotion to me. I am looking down upon you with such profound, overwhelming joy, deeply moved by the incredible perseverance you have displayed. You have entirely stopped trying to force the harvest, and in doing so, you have allowed the most beautiful bloom to open within your own soul. This unshakable contentment is the absolute greatest treasure of your waiting season. As you securely rest in this holy presence, you will begin to notice that the very way you communicate with me naturally begins to shift. You will no longer pray from a place of frantic desperation, constantly offering me your limited human suggestions on how to quickly fix your life. Instead, your prayers will become quiet, beautiful declarations of complete trust and profound gratitude. You will find yourself simply sitting in the stillness, thanking me for the unseen miraculous work I am actively doing behind the scenes. You will be entirely content to let my perfect will unfold in my perfect timing, completely free from the exhausting pressure of managing the clock. The enemy will undoubtedly attempt to test this new peace. He will try to send sudden violent winds against your mind, desperately whispering that this contentment is only a temporary illusion. He will try to point your attention back to the unresolved external problems, hoping to spark a renewed sense of panic. But his lies will now fall completely flat against the solid, immovable rock of your newly matured, battle-tested faith. You will simply smile at the future, not because you know exactly what is going to happen, but because you intimately know the character of the one who holds it firmly in his hands. You are a living, breathing testament to the incredible power of complete surrender. People around you will begin to notice this massive, undeniable change. They will see the unresolved storms swirling around your life, and they will be utterly baffled by your unshakable smile. They will ask you how you are managing to stay so incredibly calm when by all human standards, you should be completely falling apart. In those moments, you will not need to preach a loud, complicated sermon. Your very presence exuding this deep, settling contentment will be the greatest testimony of my love they will ever witness. You will simply tell them that you have handed the heavy pen back to the author, and you are completely at peace with however he chooses to write the rest of your story. When you finally hand the heavy pen back to me and fully embrace that profound, supernatural peace, your soul crosses a magnificent unseen threshold. The quiet, unshakable contentment you feel right now is not the end of your spiritual journey. It is the breathtaking beginning of your true preparation. I want to gently elevate your newly anchored faith into a beautiful, vibrant state of joyful expectation and complete willing alignment with my divine plan. I am calling you to trust me to grow spiritually and to find hope during hardship. For so long you equated peace merely with survival. You genuinely believed that simply enduring the violent storms of this life without completely panicking was the absolute highest possible victory your weary soul could ever achieve. But my unconditional love desires far more for you than just exhausted, quiet endurance. The heavy weight of dread has been entirely lifted from your shoulders. I want to completely and permanently replace the final lingering remnants of your grief with an overwhelming, confident excitement for the exact future I'm currently preparing for you. I want your heart to completely overflow with a radiant, unshakable anticipation that looks forward to tomorrow, not with lingering dread, but with a bright, beautiful hope that simply cannot be contained. You can now look back over your shoulder at the fragile, broken dreams you finally bravely let go of, and instead of weeping bitterly over their painful loss, you can clearly see them for what they truly were, heavily limited human drafts of a much grander, eternal masterpiece. I am carefully guiding you into the stunning, awe-inspiring realization that my specific design for your life is infinitely better, vastly richer, and far more deeply fulfilling than anything you could have ever mapped out on your own. When you were furiously fighting to hold on to your original desperate plan, you were essentially demanding a small, shallow puddle, while I was actively trying to give you an entire, boundless ocean of grace. Growth should happen gradually. You could not see the vast difference then, because your vision was heavily clouded by panic, exhaustion, and hot tears. You can finally see that the things you wept over losing were actively keeping you from the magnificent abundance I had planned. But now that your hands are completely empty and your heart is entirely yielded, the profound scales have fallen from your eyes. I am finally free to pour out the absolute fullness of what I have always intended for your beautiful life, without your own limited expectations getting in the way. Notice how the very posture of your soul has beautifully transformed over these quiet, sacred weeks. Just a short season ago, your time spent with me was filled with anxious, tearful demands. You would come into our quiet space, completely exhausted, your shoulders tight with fear, presenting me with a frantic, heavily detailed list of exactly how and when I needed to rescue you from your pain. You viewed prayer as a desperate, exhausting negotiation, a way to urgently convince me to align with your strict earthly timelines so that you could finally catch your breath. But look closely at your beautiful spirit now, my child. You have organically adopted a beautiful posture of pure, trusting readiness to receive. You no longer bring me a strict, demanding schedule. Instead, you bring me a completely open, perfectly willing heart. You sit in the absolute stillness of your room and simply whisper your deep gratitude, entirely content to let my perfect will unfold precisely as I see fit, without any frantic need to force the hands of the clock. You have finally learned that I am never late, and you are finally resting in that beautiful truth. My words to you serve a specific purpose. They are meant to encourage, comfort, teach wisdom, and point your tired soul toward hope. This beautiful transformation from desperate striving to quiet trust reveals a rare, profound spiritual maturity within you. You have learned the magnificent, life-altering secret of genuinely praising me in the silent hallway long before the new door ever swings open. Anyone can shout with loud, enthusiastic joy when the tangible miracle is instantly placed directly into their hands. But it takes a deeply forged, beautifully battle-tested faith to sing a genuine song of absolute gratitude while standing entirely alone in an empty, completely unresolved room. When you worship me in the waiting, when you lift your hands in the quiet, uncertain space between what was and what will be, you are actively declaring to the spiritual realm that my unchanging character is entirely enough for you. You are courageously choosing to celebrate the breathtaking reality of my daily presence, fully knowing and trusting that the author of your story has never once failed to write a beautiful, triumphant ending. This is the very essence of true worship, a heart that sings not because of what it has received, but because of who it intimately knows. Your praise has become a powerful weapon, entirely defeating the shadows of doubt that used to completely paralyze you. The reason I strictly required this exact specific progression first, the profound peace, and now this joyful expectation, is to fiercely protect you from the very real devastating danger of your own earthly desires. The human heart is incredibly fragile and constantly searching for something tangible to worship. If I had answered your desperate prayers in the exact moment you tearfully demanded them, while you were still frantically grasping for absolute control, the true blessing would have instantly become a dangerous, crushing trap. You would have placed your entire identity and your ultimate hope into the fragile hands of a new relationship, a sudden career breakthrough, or a rapid financial rescue. You would have unknowingly turned my greatest earthly gifts into massive, suffocating idols, entirely separating your heart from the true, eternal source of your joy. I love you far too much to let a blessing become your ultimate destruction. I had to completely clear the altar of your heart before I could place anything new upon it. But now, my precious child, the internal landscape has completely shifted in the most glorious way, by gently keeping you in the waiting season until your anxious demands dissolve beautifully into trusting readiness. I have ensured that your heart now beats in perfect rhythm with my own will. You no longer view the impending blessing as the ultimate savior of your soul. You clearly recognize it simply as a beautiful, temporary extension of my eternal grace. Because you have finally learned to find your total unshakable worth entirely in my profound love, you can now safely hold the magnificent gifts I am about to give you without ever being controlled by them. You are finally completely prepared to receive immense favor without the terrifying risk of it destroying your profound, newly discovered peace. You can walk directly into the beautiful land of abundance without losing a single piece of your soul in the process. Your hands are open, not just to receive the gift, but to immediately offer it back to me in worship. You are learning to experience peace in every single moment of your day as you stand here in this glorious expectant state, completely and willingly aligned with my divine plan. You will begin to feel a distinct thrilling shift in the spiritual atmosphere all around you. The heavy, suffocating silence of the long waiting season is slowly, beautifully giving way to the quiet, rhythmic footsteps of approaching grace. You do not need to scramble to make final, frantic preparations, and you certainly do not need to resurrect your old toxic habits of self-reliance just to ensure everything goes perfectly. Your only task in this exact holy moment is to keep your eyes firmly fixed on me, breathing in the deep, unshakable peace we have carefully cultivated together, and allowing your spirit to swell with a pure, unadulterated hope. Let the confident excitement completely wash over you deeply, knowing that every single tear you shed has been meticulously collected, and every moment of agonizing delay has been brilliantly used for your ultimate eternal good. You are standing on holy ground, and the air is thick with my magnificent promises. You are so incredibly close now. The deep, painful pruning is entirely finished. The old, fragile foundations have been completely rebuilt, and your exhausted tears have been beautifully transformed into a quiet, deeply confident smile. Your journey through the valley of waiting has forged an unbreakable bond between us. And now it is time for you to reap the beautiful harvest. You are standing perfectly poised on the absolute edge of your magnificent breakthrough, holding absolutely nothing but an open, grateful heart that is completely ready to receive the absolute best I have to offer. As the long, dark night finally begins to break, and the very first radiant rays of your new morning stretch beautifully across the vast horizon, there is only one final breathtaking moment left for us to experience together. We must now walk forward directly into the gentle, blinding light of the dawn, as I prepare to finally place the long-awaited, magnificent miracle into your beautifully surrendered hands. Walk with me into this breathtaking dawn. My child, feel the absolute warmth of the morning sun as it gently washes over your face, completely chasing away the lingering shadows of your long, agonizing night. This is the magnificent climax of your entire journey. The beautiful sacred space where the heavy burdens of your past completely dissolve into the brilliant light of my grace. You are finally stepping into a permanent state of complete, overwhelming peace, and I want you to simply stand here for a moment and take it all in. You are experiencing true peace. Take a deep, steady breath. The air is entirely different here. It is no longer thick with the suffocating anxiety of unanswered questions. It is incredibly light, pure, and filled with a profound, tearful worship. Look down at your hands. They are no longer bruised and bleeding from frantically trying to hold on to the wrong things. They are completely healed, peacefully open, and perfectly positioned to receive the magnificent abundance I have prepared for you. You have walked a very long, difficult road to reach this exact moment, and the radiant smile on your face tells me that you finally understand why every single step was entirely necessary. I want to joyfully celebrate this total, beautiful transformation within you today. I want you to clearly see the breathtaking difference between the frightened, utterly exhausted soul who first fell to their knees in the dark, and the beautifully mature, spiritually vibrant child who now walks beside me in complete, unhindered freedom. When we first began this journey, your faith was a fragile, desperate thing. You were completely consumed by your own earthly timeline, demanding that I instantly fix your external circumstances so you could finally breathe. But spiritual growth happens gradually. You allowed me to carefully prune the dead branches. You bravely rebuilt your fractured identity on the unshakable foundation of my love. And you courageously refused to turn back to the toxic familiarity of your past. Because you willingly submitted to this delicate, sometimes painful process, you are no longer a captive to your own fears. You have blossomed into a deeply anchored, unshakable believer who knows with absolute certainty that my presence is the only shelter you will ever need. You have truly learned how to find hope during hardship. Here in the quiet, magnificent brilliance of this new morning, I want to reveal a profound, life-altering truth to your completely surrendered heart. As you stand on the absolute edge of receiving the physical breakthrough you have spent years tearfully praying for, I want you to look closely at your own spirit. Do you feel the deep, settling, unshakable contentment that is currently resting within your chest? Do you realize that this overwhelming joy has arrived completely independently of your circumstances? This is the greatest, most profound revelation of your entire journey. The most magnificent miracle you have ever received was not a sudden change in your external situation, but the complete miraculous healing of your own surrendered heart. You spent so much time begging me to change your life, completely unaware that my primary driving objective was to lovingly, permanently change you. The external blessings, the restored relationships, the financial provision, the open doors are beautiful gifts, but they are entirely secondary. The true eternal prize is the breathtaking reality that you no longer need those things to be completely whole, because your heart has been so completely and beautifully healed. You are now walking in an absolute, unshakable confidence in my perfect timing. You no longer view the delays of your past as cruel punishments, but as the meticulously designed, highly productive seasons of your spiritual preparation. You clearly recognize that if I had given you the blessing exactly when you frantically demanded it, the sheer weight of it would have completely crushed your fragile, unprepared spirit. But now, you can look at the exact same blessing and safely hold it with open, grateful hands, knowing that it will never become a toxic idol in your life. You trust me completely. You trust the steady rhythm of my grace. You trust that I am constantly working behind the scenes for your ultimate, eternal good. This new absolute confidence is not a temporary emotional high. It is a permanent, deeply rooted conviction that will fiercely protect your soul against every single storm this unpredictable world will ever try to send your way. This is what it means to truly trust God. Allow this profound, tearful worship to completely wash over you. It is entirely beautiful to me. These are no longer the bitter, exhausted tears of grief and confusion that you used to cry in the middle of the night. These are the warm, radiant tears of a heart that is completely overflowing with an indescribable, joyful expectation. You are looking toward your future, not with the heavy, suffocating dread of the unknown, but with a bright, beautiful, uncontainable hope. You know perfectly well that your entire future is entirely secure in my capable hands. The story I am writing for your life is so vastly superior, so incredibly rich, and so profoundly fulfilling that all your previous limited drafts pale in comparison. I want you to eagerly anticipate the magnificent things I am about to do. Wake up every single morning with a breathtaking sense of wonder, fully expecting my goodness and mercy to actively pursue you all the days of your life. The beautiful fruit of this waiting season is just beginning to ripen, and the harvest will be far more abundant than you could ever possibly imagine. Your journey has guided you safely to renewed faith. But as I place these long-awaited magnificent miracles into your beautifully surrendered hands today, I want to leave you with a powerful, lingering invitation. This incredible, intimate closeness we have forged in the dark valleys of your waiting season is not something you leave behind when the mountain peak is finally reached. The deep, unbreakable bond we have built through your tears, your doubts, and your brave daily obedience is the absolute greatest treasure you possess. I am calling you to continue walking intimately with me every single day of your life. Do not let the sudden arrival of your earthly blessings distract you from the eternal source of your joy. When the celebration begins, when the new doors swing wide open, and when the bright sunlight of my favor completely changes your physical reality, I want you to remember the quiet, sacred sanctuary of my presence, where your soul was first healed. Continue to bring me your heart in simple, honest prayer, because sincere prayer will constantly bring you peace, hope, comfort, and encouragement. Never forget that the external miracles, as beautiful and necessary as they are, will eventually fade. Earthly seasons will always continue to shift. New challenges will inevitably arise, and the landscape of your life will constantly change. But my presence is the ultimate unchanging prize that will seamlessly sustain you in total peace long after these temporary earthly miracles have completely run their course. The profound, supernatural contentment you have discovered in me is an eternal locked vault that absolutely nothing in this world can ever steal from you. You have finally learned how to be entirely satisfied with simply being my beloved child. That is the true miracle of a completely surrendered heart. You have let go of everything that was holding you back, and in doing so, you have beautifully, perfectly found everything you were ever searching for. You are safe. You are entirely loved. And your magnificent new chapter begins right now. Step forward boldly into this glorious day, my precious child. You are walking in a breathtaking, unhindered freedom that most people only ever dream of experiencing. Let your life become a radiant, undeniable testament to the incredible life-altering power of total surrender. When others look at you, let them see a soul that is entirely at rest, a spirit that is beautifully anchored in grace, and a heart that completely trusts its Creator. There is absolutely nothing left for you to frantically manage, nothing left for you to desperately control, and nothing left for you to constantly fear. The battle has been fought, the heavy burden has been permanently lifted, and the victory is entirely yours. Keep your hands securely in mine. Keep your eyes firmly fixed on my love. And let us walk together into the beautiful, boundless horizon I have meticulously prepared for you. May my gentle peace remain with you always. You are completely ready.